There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot cure. You've felt it. Not the tiredness that comes after a long run or a full day of good work. This is something deeper, something that lives behind your eyes and sits in your chest and follows you even into your rest. It is the exhaustion of someone who has been gripping the wheel of their life, their relationships, their future so tightly for so long that they've forgotten what it felt like to simply let the road carry them. You are not tired from living. Pause. You are tired from controlling. And here is the thing that no one tells you about that particular kind of tired. It doesn't resolve on its own, because the part of you that needs certainty, that demands to know what comes next, who thinks what, how things will turn out, that part is at war with something that will never surrender. Reality. Today I want to take you somewhere different, not to a morning routine, not to a productivity framework, not to another list of habits that promise to fix what can't be fixed with habits. I want to take you to an idea. Ancient in its roots, radical in its application, and more necessary now in the age of infinite information and zero inner stillness than it has ever been. This is not a video about giving up. It is a video about waking up. Stay with me. The prison with beautiful walls, visuals of grand architecture, ivy-covered towers, stone corridors. There is a certain kind of life that looks, from the outside, like success. The career is progressing. The apartment is clean. The calendar is full. People respect you. Some might even envy you. And yet inside, if you are honest with yourself in the 3 a.m. hours when honesty becomes unavoidable, something feels hollow. Not because you have the wrong things, but because you've built everything on a foundation that was never stable to begin with. The belief that if you just plan enough, think enough, optimize enough, prepare enough, you can control how your story unfolds. This is the prison. And its cruelest trick is that it looks exactly like a home. Think about what you do with uncertainty. Really think about it. When you don't know the outcome of something important, what happens inside you? Most people reach, immediately, for resolution. They Google, they ask, they overthink, they rehearse conversations, they build contingency plans for their contingency plans. The discomfort of not knowing feels like an alarm going off, and every instinct says, find the answer. Find it now. Make the uncertainty stop. But here is what nobody tells you. That alarm is a liar. Not knowing is not an emergency. It is the default condition of being alive. And treating it as a crisis, spending your energy sprinting from one certainty to the next, is one of the most exhausting things a human being can do. There is an old philosophical tradition emerging from the skeptical thinkers of ancient Greece, refined through centuries of reflection, and crystallized in the essays of early modern Europe, that posed a single question as both a personal motto and a philosophical foundation. What do I actually know? Not as pessimism, not as defeat, but as genuine, curious, open inquiry. What, if I strip away assumptions, social conditioning, ego, and fear, do I actually verifiably know? The answer, honestly reckoned with, is almost always far less than I've been acting like. And somehow that realization doesn't collapse you. It frees you. The tyranny of certainty. Visuals shift to modern imagery, phones, news feeds, someone staring at a screen at midnight. We live in the most information-saturated moment in human history, and we are, by almost every measure, more anxious than ever. This is not a coincidence, because we have confused information with certainty, and we have confused certainty with safety. And we have been promised, implicitly and endlessly, that if you just know enough, follow the right people, read the right things, plan the right way, the uncertainty will go away. It hasn't gone away. It won't, because certainty, at the deepest level, is not a product of information. It is a feeling, and like all feelings, it is not something you can acquire permanently. It is something you chase, and the more desperately you chase it, the more anxious the chasing makes you. Consider the people in your life who need to be right, always, about everything. Watch them carefully, not with judgment, with curiosity. Are they peaceful? Are they generous with their attention? Do they listen with genuine openness, or do they listen only long enough to find the place where they can insert their correction? Almost never, in my experience, do the fiercely certain people seem at peace. What looks like confidence from the outside is, on the inside, almost always a fortress. And a fortress, however impressive its architecture, is not a home. It is a structure built entirely around the fear of attack. It is safety achieved through permanent vigilance. It is exhausting to maintain. The philosophical tradition I'm drawing on today, the one that asks, what do I actually know, understood something that our culture has largely forgotten. Holding beliefs lightly is not weakness. It is wisdom. There is a difference between conviction and rigidity. Conviction says, this is what I believe, based on what I know, and I'm open to learning more. Rigidity says, this is what I believe, full stop, and nothing you say or show me will change that. Conviction is a home you can breathe in. Rigidity is a cage you mistake for a house. The invitation, and it is an invitation, not a command, is to let your beliefs breathe, to hold your opinions the way you'd hold a bird, firmly enough that it doesn't escape you, gently enough that you don't crush it, to say, "I don't know," and mean it not as defeat but as the most intellectually honest thing you can say. Because the moment you can do that, the moment "I don't know" stops feeling like failure and starts feeling like freedom. Something in your nervous system begins to unclench. Something that has been locked up for years starts, slowly, to open. The trap inside your mind, quieter visuals, a person sitting still, hands folded, slow breathing. I want to talk about something that lives so close to you it probably feels like personality. The need to control. Not the obvious kind, not the person who rearranges everything after you've organized it. I mean the internal kind, the kind that operates invisibly, constantly in the background of everything you do. The need to control how people see you. The need to control how you feel, to manage and avoid and suppress and redirect your own emotional experience. The need to control outcomes by thinking about them hard enough, worrying about them thoroughly enough, planning for them carefully enough. Underneath all of this is a belief so deep and so old that you've probably never consciously examined it. It goes something like this: if I stay vigilant enough, nothing truly terrible will happen. It sounds protective, it sounds responsible, it is magical thinking, because terrible things happen to vigilant people. Loss happens, betrayal happens, illness happens, not because you weren't careful enough, not because your contingency plan had a flaw, but because life, at its core, is not controllable, not mostly, not often. Fundamentally, the thinkers who understood this best didn't retreat into despair. They made a different move, one that sounds counterintuitive until you've felt it work. They separated what happens from what they add to what happens. Here is the core insight, and I want you to sit with it. The pain of an event has a natural weight, but we almost always double it, triple it, sometimes multiply it tenfold by adding to it our resistance, our "this shouldn't be happening," our "why me," our "if only I had done something differently," our "what if this never gets better." That is not the event. That is our war with the event. And like all wars, it extracts a terrible price even from the side that believes it's winning. The thinkers in this tradition called this the war with reality, and they observed something profound. The war with reality is always lost. Reality always wins. The only question is how much of yourself you sacrifice in the fighting. The alternative is not indifference. I want to be clear about this, because it's the most common misunderstanding. Letting go of control is not the same as not caring. It is not detachment. It is not cold philosophical distance from your own life. It is what we might call conscious surrender. The surrender of the wise, not the defeated. It is the recognition that your energy is finite, that resistance to what already is costs an enormous amount of that energy, and that what flows from releasing that resistance is not emptiness. It is spaciousness. It is the room to be fully present, to create, to love without managing, to grieve without fighting the grief itself. When you stop pouring yourself into resistance, you free up resources that can go toward what you can actually affect, toward real action, real presence, real life. This is not a theory. You can test it. Today, find something you are currently resisting, something that has already happened, or is happening, and that you cannot change by thinking harder about it. And just for a moment, stop fighting it. Not forever. Just for a moment, notice what happens. Everything is passing, visuals of seasons changing, rivers moving, time-lapse clouds. Here is a question worth living with. What are you, if everything you are keeps changing? Your opinions shift, your priorities evolve. The things that once consumed you can become irrelevant. The things you once feared can become the experiences that most shaped you. Your body is different than it was 10 years ago. Your relationships have changed. Even your memories, the very things you'd call what happened, change shape over time, colored by who you've become since. Nothing is fixed. Not even you. Most people experience this as terrifying. The ancient philosophical tradition I'm drawing on today found it liberating. If nothing is fixed, then you are not locked in. You are not condemned to be who you were yesterday, or who you were at your worst moment, or who other people decided you were, before you had a chance to decide for yourself. You are always in process. You are not a noun. You are a verb, not a state, but a transition, not an achievement, but a becoming. And here is where this becomes practically powerful. If the self is not fixed, then the story you tell about yourself is not fixed. And if the story is not fixed, you have more authorship than you've been exercising. We live in a culture that rewards consistency to the point of rigidity. We distrust people who change their minds. We call it weakness. We call it unreliability. We call it flip-flopping. But consider what we're actually rewarding when we demand that people never change. We're rewarding the refusal to be taught by life. The most alive people I've encountered, the ones with genuine warmth and depth and capacity for connection, are almost always people who have allowed life to change them, who wear the evidence of their evolution not as embarrassment, but as dignity. Changing your mind when evidence and experience warrant it is not a failure of character. It is character. The deepest self-compassion available to you right now might be this: you do not have to be the same person you were. You are allowed to release old certainties. You are allowed to outgrow old beliefs. You are allowed to look back at who you were with the same fond, slightly amused recognition you'd give a photograph of yourself at 17, not with shame, but with the warmth of knowing you've traveled since then. The self that holds on too tightly is the self that breaks. The self that moves with life, that bends, adapts, releases, and reimagines. That self is quietly, persistently unbreakable. 4 practices for the ordinary hours. Warmer visuals. Morning light. A journal on a desk. Someone walking slowly. Everything we've covered so far is philosophy, and philosophy that stays in the clouds is useless. So let me bring it down to earth, to the morning, to the argument you're replaying, to the email you're afraid to send, to the version of tomorrow you're trying to control from today. Here are 4 practices, not as a prescription, as an invitation. Practice 1. Write to think, not to record. Most people journal to document what they've already thought. The deeper practice is to write in order to find out what you think. When anxiety lives only inside your mind, it has infinite room to expand. It fills every corner. It keeps you awake at 3 a.m. because there's nothing to push back against it. When you write it down, something shifts. The formless becomes form. The thing with no edges suddenly has edges. And 9 times out of 10, the thing with edges is considerably smaller than the shapeless dread that was consuming you. You don't need a beautiful journal. You don't need a practice. Just the next time you feel overwhelmed, write it down. All of it. Without editing, without shaping, just let it pour from the inside of your head onto something outside of it. Then read what you wrote, with a little distance, and notice what's actually there. Practice 2. Stay in the question. The next time you feel the compulsion to reach for certainty, to search for the answer, to ask for reassurance, to make a decision just to end the discomfort of not deciding, pause, breathe, stay in the question a little longer. Notice what the discomfort actually feels like in your body. Where does it live? Your chest, your throat, your stomach. What does it actually feel like if you let yourself feel it without immediately trying to resolve it? Notice that you can feel it without being destroyed by it. This is not torture. This is training. Training the nervous system to understand at a level deeper than thought that uncertainty is not an emergency. Uncertainty is Tuesday. Laugh at your own absurdity. There is something extraordinary that happens when you can find yourself genuinely funny, not in a self-deprecating, covering the wound kind of way. In a real, affectionate, look at this creature trying so hard kind of way. The controlling mind takes itself enormously seriously. It believes that the seriousness is required, that if you relax your vigilance for even a moment, something terrible will slip through. But the vigilance is not working. The anxiety is not preventing the things you're afraid of. It is only costing you the peace of the present. When you can notice yourself catastrophizing and find it just a little bit absurd, when you can catch yourself rehearsing a conversation for the 47th time and smile. At your own effort, you take a tremendous amount of power away from the pattern. Laughter, real laughter, at your own beautiful human ridiculousness is not avoidance. It is the beginning of freedom. Practice 4. Let the present moment be enough. This doesn't require a meditation practice. It doesn't require any particular discipline. It just requires a choice, made repeatedly, sometimes hourly. The choice to let what is actually happening right now in this moment be enough. Not perfect, not permanent, not everything you'd hoped for. Just enough. Notice the specific quality of the light in the room you're sitting in right now. The temperature of the air. The sounds that exist in your immediate environment. The fact that in this moment, you are alive and conscious and reading these words. That is not nothing. That in fact is everything if you let yourself feel it fully instead of rushing past it toward some better future that will also, when you arrive, be rushed past. The present moment is the only place where life is actually happening. Every plan, every worry, every regret, every hope, they all happen in your head. But this right here is real. Come back to it, again and again and again. The freedom waiting for you builds gently. Slower pace. The light is warmer now. We've traveled a long way together in these 20 minutes. And I don't want to wrap this in a bow, because that would be untrue to what we've been exploring. Life doesn't wrap in bows yet. Doesn't resolve. It continues changing, surprising, asking things of you that you didn't anticipate. So instead, let me leave you with this. Everything you are afraid of losing, you will eventually lose. Not because the universe is cruel. Because loss and change and ending are woven into the fabric of everything that is alive, into the very definition of aliveness. And here is the paradox, the one that surprises people every time they actually live it. When you genuinely accept this, when you stop spending yourself fighting it, you begin to have more of what you were afraid of losing, more presence with the people you love because you're no longer managing them against some imagined future version of things going wrong, more creativity in your work because you're no longer paralyzed by the fear of a result you can't control, more of that quiet cellular peace because you've stopped declaring war on the nature of existence itself. This is not a comfortable philosophy. It will ask things of you, real things. It will ask you to sit with not knowing when every part of you wants resolution. To release the illusion of control not once, but daily, sometimes hourly. To let yourself be changed by experience rather than hardened against it. But the freedom on the other side, that freedom is real. It is not a life without problems. It is not a life without pain. It is not a life without loss. It is the discovery not once, but again and again that you can move through difficulty without being destroyed by it. That you can not know and still be okay, that you can be incomplete, contradictory, still becoming, and that this is not a flaw. This is the whole point. The final gift this kind of thinking offers is not certainty, it is something better. It shows us how to be human fully, courageously, with wonder and humor and an open hand. And if you are exhausted from holding on so tightly, perhaps it is time to practice the thing that is simultaneously the simplest and the bravest act available to you. Softens, let go, not of your values. Not of your love, not of your ambition. Let go of the need for life to be something other than what it is. Let go of the demand for certainty in a universe that was never designed to provide it. Let go of the version of yourself you've been white-knuckling since you were young enough to believe you had to, and see what remains. Long pause, I think you'll be surprised by what you find there.